Hello and welcome to Kids Club.
From the Curate's Study. Sam, what are we going to do today?
Okay, so today, as always, we have a prayer. No, sorry, don't have a prayer. We have a story, we have a craft activity, and then we have our prayer.
Okay, so there we go. So that sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Now, I don't know if you can remember, but last week when we met, we were talking about how lots of people who followed Jesus were starting to get in trouble with some of the religious leaders of the time. And we talked about how they were getting told off for healing people, and how actually they'd been thrown into prison and an angel had to come and rescue them. Well, this week we can see that things are getting even worse for people who were Christians, the early Christians. Because if they told people they were followers of Jesus, or they tried to do good things in Jesus' name, like we heard the apostles had healed that man, then they could really get themselves in a lot of trouble. They could even get themselves killed. And there were groups of people who were actually paid to go round and find Christians and do terrible things to them. And this week we're going to hear a bit about a man called Saul who used to do just that. But hang on a minute. Is that Lola at the door, one of our dogs? No, I don't think it is. Who's that?
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Wah.
What? Who?
What are you so excited about?
So there we go. Just when we were talking about serious things, that silly man comes along again. Okay, Sam, if you're ready, read us our Bible story.
The enemies of Jesus had hopes to kill off his followers. Instead, they only made them stronger. The number of believers grew as they scattered. They ran away from bad men like Saul. As they ran, they told people that Jesus was worth living and dying for. Saul plotted about always to kill Jesus' followers. He hated anyone who had anything to do with Jesus. His hatred was so very dangerous and ugly. Saul went to the chief priest. He asked if he could search for Jesus' followers inside and outside of the country. Then he would arrest them all. He wanted to bring all of Jesus' followers back to Jerusalem, no matter if they were men or women. He would have them killed. Word that Saul was on his way spread fast. All the believers in the area prayed for each other. They knew Saul was more terrible than any other. He was cruel. Saul went to Damascus first. He carried important letters. These gave him the right to arrest any of Jesus' followers, armed with guards travelling with him. As Saul travelled in that direction, though, a truly amazing thing happened. Suddenly, a light from heaven flashed around him. It knocked Saul off his horse. Saul fell to the ground. He heard a voice saying to him, "Saul, Saul, why are you hurting me so much?" "Who are you, Lord?" "I am Jesus of Nazareth. Through my followers you keep arresting me. Through them you put me in prison. You kill me over and over again. Now get up and go into the city." The men who were with Saul heard the voice too. They saw no one. Saul did as he was told. When he opened his eyes, he found he was blind. He had his men lead him to the place Jesus had told him to go. There, he waited in darkness.
Wow, that sounds like scary stuff, doesn't it? Imagine how Saul was feeling. 1 minute, he was a powerful man, riding along on his horse, carrying letters that let him do whatever he wanted to do to followers of Jesus. And then suddenly, he was knocked off of his horse by this bright light, and he was blind. And he heard the very man that he hated so much, Jesus, speaking to him. He must have been terrified. I tell you what, I can't wait to find out next week what happens to Saul. It's certainly scary, isn't it? Anyway, let's see what Angie's going to do for us today in a craft.
Hello and welcome to today's Kids Club and the craft time. Today our story was based on Saul's journey on the road to Damascus. Now, I must be honest, and I've had a bit of a trouble this week of thinking up of a craft to do. And then I thought, well, to remember the story, why don't we do a craft that involves the words? So I've come across various different word searches for the road to Damascus. There's one printed out here, and there are plenty of free ones on the internet if you wanted to, but I thought it would be fun to do your own. So first of all, you just need either some paper with grid lines on, or if you've got lined paper, you can just draw lines in the opposite direction to make your squares. And then you just need to maybe find the bit in the Bible, the section that we're doing. So it's in Acts 9, Saul's conversion, and then it goes from Acts 9 verse 1 through to 8 or 9, I think 8. So from 1 to 8. So it's a case of reading through. So I found some of the words. So obviously we've got Saul. So if you just write a list of the names, and obviously he went on the road to Damascus. Okay, and then he saw a bright light, and he fell to the ground. He was on his way to Damascus to harm any of the disciples of Jesus. And he had letters with him which he could use to capture any people in the city. This was all part of his journey. He would probably go to the synagogue, and when he was at the synagogue, before he left, he spoke to a priest. So there are all these different words that are in the story. And then what you can do is, if you draw a grid here, say from here to here, and then you can write all these words in. Well, just to save a bit of time, I've done that. So we've got journey, synagogue, road, Damascus, Saul, disciples, priest, Jesus, and then you can then fill in all the other empty squares with other letters. And when this is completely full, then you can give it to another member of your family and maybe time them to see how long it takes them to find all of the words in your word search, and then maybe ask them to read you the passage again and see if they've found all of them that you've put in. So I hope that will keep you busy on this wet afternoon, and we'll see you again. Take care. Bye.
That was fun, wasn't it? I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget, you can always look back at previous weeks if you've got nothing to do, because there's lots of other crafts in previous episodes and previous stories that you can listen to, and even a couple of glimpses of Lola and Thor, our two dogs. Anyway, Sam, are you going to give us our prayer?
Mm-hmm. Oh, let us feel you very near when we kneel down to pray. Let us be still that you may send a message for today. It is easier to believe you are near when the world is quiet. Help us to know you are near when it grows noisy. Amen.
Amen. Wow, that is very true, isn't it? Sometimes it's easy to feel that God is near when everything is going well and the world is quiet around us. But when times are tough, actually when we need to feel God closest of all, sometimes when it can be quite tricky to feel him about. And that's when it's more important, of course, that we pray. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's Kids Club from here in the Curate Study. Until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hands. God bless, my friends. Goodbye.